Hello miners. In this video, I want to tackle the most underutilized overclock of Season 5, Conductive Thermals. I didn't pay much attention to it at first, and I ended up placing it in the gimmick category. Something I'm sure some of you did as well. After some testing, I realized just how wrong I was. I started looking for other players' experience with it, but I've only found discussions about it on Reddit. That brings us to the creation of this video. I'll be covering builds with this overclock that range from DPS to crowd control, and I'll also showcase how it can allow you to fill a support role in a team, creating opportunities to quickly remove priority targets. Alright, that's enough about me though. Let's get on with the video. If you look at conductive thermals at face value, you can see that we gain a temporary status effect that pops fire, ice, and electric damage by 5%. And we also gain a 5% temperature bonus in exchange for losing 3 damage and gaining plus 37% heat per shot. The thing is, however, the description of the overclock is really vague since it doesn't explain how the status effect is applied and amplified. To grasp just how powerful this overclock is, I'll give a quick rundown of the full explanation of what the status does. The first effect of the status reduces elemental resistances and increases elemental weaknesses by 5% per shot. In this case, in every instant the bullets impact anywhere on this dreadnought, its 40% fire resistance goes down to 35%, to 30%, to 25%, and so on and so forth because of the 5% elemental resistance decrease. The same concept is applied to enemies that have elemental weaknesses, wherein each bullet impact will amplify its effect by 5%. This unique status effect from the overclock stacks indefinitely until it reaches the 100% bonus threshold within its 10-second duration. The second effect of the status multiplies a creature's ignite, douse, freeze, and unfreeze temperatures by times 0.95. It stacks up to 30 times at maximum, and the whole stack disappears after the duration of the first instance of the status being applied ends. You've got all that?
No!
Well, that's too damn bad! Now that we have an understanding of what the description actually means, we can start with the mod setup of the overclock. To start it off, the first tier of the overclock that you should take is High Volume Plasma Field.
But Ballistic, don't you want to take less heat per shot because of the already high fire rate?
Well, I thought so too, until I realized that the faster fire rate will only enable you to maximize the effect of the status by allowing you to stack its effect much more efficiently to the point where it far outweighs the benefits of taking the reduced heat per shot. You should also take into account that this is one of the few overclocks of the Drak 25 where it in fact does not increase the overheat duration, giving you ample time to switch to your secondary if things get desperate. As for the second tier, we will be taking larger battery since this overclock does not rely on direct damage, but instead, the elemental damage that will be amplified from your secondary and teammates. For the third tier, we'll be using Gen 2 cooling system as it will enable you to not solely rely on our secondary to kill enemies, as it will enable you to burst fire on weaker enemies for longer periods of time. As for the fourth tier, we'll be taking Plasma Splash because it far outweighs the benefits of taking Overcharged PCF since it only has a 15% chance of its effect proccing. Plasma Splash will also allow you to apply the status no matter where you hit your target. We also have to consider the fact that Plasma Splash's damage is split into 2 damage types, which are Disintegration and Fire, meaning that we will do increased damage to targets that do not have fire resistance the longer we shoot, which can be seen here with this Barrage Infector. Lastly, on the 5th tier, we'll be taking the Thermal Feedback Loop since it will bring your fire rate to a whopping 21 at 50% heat buildup, which will allow us to reach the maximum bonus threshold that much more quickly. Alright, now that you know what conductive thermals can do on its own, let's now add our secondaries to the mix to see this overclock in its full potential. For the first build, we'll be using special bolts with the mod setup of 3-3-1-1-2 for that beautiful DOT damage. Now you might be wondering why I chose this overclock over Firebolt or Ice Bolt. Well, that's because both of these overclocks sacrifice too much ammo to deal substantial single target damage to tank your enemies with their respective resistances. That, and I mean come on, just look at the insanity of that damage. You can still work around the swarm with special bolts by kiting them to an IFG with an electricity chain in order to clear them out quickly within one burst. They will also be slow enough that you'll be out of harm's way once they are within the perimeter that you have set up. If the need ever arises that you need to quickly remove a target because you do not have the time or the means to set up the bolts, then that's when you could switch to your normal bolts to clear them out. As for our second build, we'll be using jumbo shells with the mod setup of 1, 2, 3, 1, 3 for that juicy single target damage that makes you feel like a green marine that just dropped on the surface of Mars every time you pull it out. This build is made for Dreadnought Sling since jumbo shells on their own do incredible damage, which, when combined with Conductive Thermals, reduces the Dreadnought's 40% fire resistance, allowing you to ignite them and skip phases instantly by doing upwards of approximately 1500 damage with IFG's effect on the target. For our last and final build that I'll be showcasing, we'll be using the jury rig boomstick once again, but with the double barrel overclock equipped with the mod setup of 1, 2, 3, 3, 3. While we lose in single target damage, we gain in crowd clear thanks to the 4-meter 220 shockwave damage, which just barely reaches the damage breakpoint to kill most grunt types. Combining this with IFG and a full burst from your Drac will still enable you to one-shot Praetorians and two-shot Oppressors. However, the one drawback this combination has against swarms is the lack of range needed to clear out targets such as Mactera, forcing you to solely rely on your Drac to take them out. Well, that's all the time I have for today. These builds with Conductive Thermals may feel lackluster at first until you learn how to grasp the flow of rotating between your secondary and primary. Or you can die trying. That's also an option. Now it's time for the obligatory if you like my videos, yada yada yada. You know what to do already. Make that red button turn gray because it really does help me out. Anyways, thanks for watching. This is Ballistic, signing off.